What if the greatest warrior of the Messira suddenly opened her eyes, not beneath Earth's sun, but beneath alien stars? And what if the ideals she was sworn to protect clashed with a future that believed it had already outgrown war? The battlefield was silent. Moments ago, Diana of the Messira Wonder Woman had stood amid shattered steel and smoke, her sword humming with divine energy, her shield cracked but unyielding. The enemy had not been human, nor God. Something older, something that tore the sky open like parchment dot, and then the light came, not the golden warmth of Olympus, not the crimson fury of Ares, but a cold, prismatic fracture in reality itself. Now she was falling, but there was no wind, no gravity, only stars, thousands of them streaking past as though she were plunging through the bloodstream of the universe. Mother, she whispered, reaching for a horizon that did not exist, and then impact. White light. Silence. When Diana awoke, the first thing she saw was a ceiling unlike any architecture of Earth, smooth, curved, glowing faintly, with embedded lines of blue illumination. The air smelled sterile, controlled, artificial. She rose in a single fluid motion, instinct overriding confusion. Her hand reached for her sword, gone, her shield gone, her lasso still coiled at her hip, but even it hummed strangely, as if uncertain of this place. The doors before her parted with a soft hiss. A man stepped inside. He wore a uniform of deep crimson and black, bearing an insignia over his chest, a symbol like an arrowhead aimed toward infinity. His posture was calm, his eyes sharp, but not hostile. "My name is Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise," he said evenly. "You're safe." Diana studied him. Not a warrior's stance, but a leader's presence. "You're not my enemy," she said at last. "No," Picard replied gently, "but we have many questions, as I suspect." "Do you?" She moved toward the viewport, beyond him, and froze. There was no sky, only stars, and beneath them, the curvature of a distant planet slowly rotating in the void. Her breath caught not in fear but in awe. "What realm is this?" she asked quietly. Picard followed her gaze. "The 24th century," he said. "And you, Miss Diana, of la Messira?" A pause. The universal translator in the room processed her words, translating ancient Greek dialect into Federation standard. "The Messira does not appear in our stellar records," Picard admitted. "It would not," she replied. "It lies beyond the sight of man." A flicker of curiosity crossed his face. "Yes," he murmured. "That seems to be a recurring theme with you." But even as diplomacy unfolded, alarms suddenly blared across the bridge. Red lights flashed. A voice cut through the comms. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting a subspace rupture forming off our port bow. The energy signature matches the anomaly that brought her aboard." Picard's gaze sharpened. Diana felt it too. A tremor not in the ship, but in reality itself. She stepped forward, eyes narrowing as she sensed something ancient stirring in the void. "That is no natural phenomenon," she said softly. On the view screen, space began to twist. A spiral of violet lightning tore through the stars, and from within it, something moved. Not a ship, not a life form, but a presence, cold, hungry, watching. Double quotes, "Red alert," Picard ordered. Diana's fists clenched. "What if," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else, "I was not brought here by accident?" The anomaly pulsed, the stars dimmed, and somewhere within that storm of fractured space a voice called her name, not in English, not in Greek, but in the language of gods. The Enterprise shuddered violently, and Diana realized something terrifying. Whatever had followed her here was not bound by time, and this future, this hopeful, enlightened Federation was about to meet a war older than the stars themselves. The lights flickered, the void screamed, and the first crack in the Federation's peaceful century had just begun. What if the peace of the Federation centuries in the making could be shattered not by empire or rebellion, but by a god who had discovered the stars? The Enterprise trembled as the subspace rupture widened, its violet edges licking across the darkness like claws tearing through silk. On the bridge, officers moved with disciplined urgency, their voices controlled but edged with tension. "Structural integrity at 92%, Lieutenant Worf reported, gripping his console as the deck shuddered beneath his boots. "The anomaly is expanding." Deanna stood near the view screen, her reflection faint against the cosmic storm. She felt it now clearly, not merely energy, not some spatial distortion. Intent, double quotes, it is searching, she said. Picard turned toward her. Searching for what? For me. A ripple passed through the rupture, and then the voice came again, low, resonant, echoing not through the air, but inside the mind. Daughter of Hippolyta. The bridge crew stiffened. Captain, Counselor Deanna Troi whispered, her eyes unfocused. I'm sensing rage, ancient rage, and something else. Say it, Picard urged. Reverence. Deanna closed her eyes. I know that voice. The stars seemed to dim as a silhouette formed within the anomaly, a colossal shape of armor and flame. Indistinct but unmistakable. A presence Diana had faced before, on blood-soaked fields beneath Earth's sun. Ares, she breathed. The name meant nothing to most of the bridge crew, but the way she said it, that meant everything. Picard approached her calmly, though red light bathed his features. You are speaking of a god. Yes. In our time, we have encountered beings of immense power, Picard replied carefully. Entities who once called themselves gods. We have learned not to accept such titles lightly. This one earns it, Diana said. The anomaly flared violently, and the ship groaned in protest. On the view screen, the fiery silhouette sharpened, not fully formed, but enough to see eyes like burning stars. You flee across worlds, Diana. Her jaw tightened. I did not flee. You were taken, and so I followed. A wave of force slammed into the Enterprise, throwing officers to the deck. Consoles, sparked shields holding at 70%. Worf barked. Picard remained upright, gripping the railing of the command platform. Hail the entity. Sir, Data asked. Open a channel. The view screen crackled. This is Captain Jionglu, Picard of the United Federation of Planets, he said firmly. You are endangering this vessel and violating our space. Identify yourself and state your intentions. A laugh rolled through the bridge, not through speakers, but through bone and thought. Federation. Such fragile unity. The fiery gaze shifted. You surround yourself with mortals who believe they have conquered war. Diana stepped forward. To leave them out of this, Ares. Their eyes burned brighter. Ah, there you are. Picard glanced between them. You know this being? I have fought him since before your civilizations knew iron, Diana answered. He feeds on conflict, on fear, on the chaos between peoples. Troy's voice trembled slightly. Captain, I believe he's amplifying aggressive impulses across subspace frequencies. If this spreads across the quadrant, Data finished. It could destabilize entire systems. Ares' voice deepened. Look at them, Diana. So proud of their peace, so certain they have evolved beyond my touch. The anomaly pulsed outward. On the tactical display, distant star systems flickered with rising power signatures. Multiple vessels, in nearby sectors, reporting sudden hostilities. Worf growled. Skirmishes breaking out without clear cause. Picard's face hardened. What are you doing? He demanded. I am reminding your enlightened age that war is never extinct. Diana felt then a subtle shift in the emotional current of the ship. Irritation, suspicion, a flicker of mistrust between officers who moments ago had operated in seamless harmony. Ares was not attacking with weapons. He was whispering into hearts. She turned to Picard urgently. He cannot be fought with torpedoes alone. He must be confronted. Confronted how? Picard asked. Her hand moved to the lasso at her side. With truth. The golden rope shimmered as if alive, reacting to the god's presence. Ares' silhouette began to push through the rupture, armor forming from stellar fire. You would challenge me here, in a galaxy brimming with untapped conflict. Diana lifted her chin. Yes. Picard studied her for a long moment. In her stance, he saw not recklessness, but conviction. Not rage, but purpose. What if, he said quietly, we allow you to face him, or we protect the peace he seeks to unravel? She met his gaze. You would trust me with your ship? Picard's eyes sharpened. I would trust you with our future. Ares' form surged forward, half emerging into normal space now, gravitational distortions rippling around him. The Enterprise shook violently, shields at 50%. Diana stepped toward the view screen. Ares, she called, her voice ringing with command. You seek war, then face a warrior, not innocence. The god's laughter rumbled. Very well. A beam of searing crimson energy lanced toward the ship and Diana leapt in a blur of motion. She smashed through the viewport as emergency force fields snapped into place behind her. Space swallowed her, but she did not fall. She flew. Golden light surrounded her as she hurtled toward the towering form of Ares, alone against a god in the vacuum of the final frontier. On the bridge, Picard watched in silence. "Magnify," he ordered softly. The viewscreen filled with the image of a lone Amazon warrior blazing against the darkness of space, and for the first time in centuries, the Federation witnessed something it had not seen since its earliest, most fragile days: a myth, a war, a goddess, in defiance of a god. Diana drew her sword as Ares' flaming blade formed in his hand, each swing distorting space-time itself. Their weapons collided and the stars around them flickered like candles in a storm. But even as they clashed, Ares leaned close, his voice lowering to a whisper only she could hear. "You still do not understand why you are here." Her eyes narrowed mid-strike. "What have you done?" The god smiled beneath his helm. "I did not bring you to this century, Diana. Something older did, something that fears what this Federation will become." A sudden pulse erupted from the anomaly, far stronger than before, on the Enterprise. "Alarms!" screamed. "Captain," Data said, voice tight with calculation. "A second energy signature is emerging from within the rupture." Picard stared at the screen. Another presence was pushing through. Larger, colder not. Fueled by rage, but, by calculation, Diana felt it instantly. This was no Olympian, no god of myth, This was something else, something that did not crave war but perfection. And it was watching her as if she were the missing piece of a discipline, centuries in the making. Ares' laughter faded. Even he looked uncertain. The void split wider, and a mechanical voice, vast and echoing across subspace, spoke a single word: assimilate. What if the true enemy was never a god of war, but a force that could turn even gods into weapons? The word hung in the vacuum like a verdict, assimilate. It did not echo with fury like Ares' voice. It did not tremble with ego or hunger. It was flat, certain, absolute. From within the widening rupture, shapes began to emerge, jangular, metallic, illuminated by sickly green light. Not one ship, not a fleet in formation. A wall, a living wall of machinery stretching beyond sensor range. On the bridge of the Enterprise, silence fell in a way that felt heavier than the alarms. Picard's jaw tightened. "Borg," he said quietly. Diana, suspended in open space between the blazing form of Ares and the approaching mechanical armada, felt the shift immediately. The emotional current changed. Where Ares radiated passion and chaos, this new presence radiated nothing. No rage, no pride, no fear, only inevitability. Ares turned toward the advancing cubes, his flaming armor flickering uncertainly. "What are these constructs?" he demanded, his voice no longer amused. The answer came not from Diana but from the collective consciousness that now flooded the sector. "We are the Borg. You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile." Diana's grip tightened around her sword. She had faced monsters, tyrants, gods drunk on their own myths. But this was something else. "Captain," Data reported, fingers moving rapidly across his console. "The Borg vessels are adapting to the residual energy from the anomaly. They are integrating its properties into their shielding." Eyes never left the screen. "Are they targeting Ares?" "Yes, sir. But also us." The Borg did not distinguish between god and mortal, only between useful and obsolete. In the vacuum, green tractor beams lanced outward from the nearest cube, locking onto Ares' fiery form. His blade flared as he slashed through one beam, but another replaced it instantly. "You dare bind a god?" Ares roared. "We do not recognize divinity." Diana saw it, then the subtle shimmer crawling across Ares' armor. Nanoscopic machines, swarming like metallic insects, attempting to rewrite even celestial fire into circuitry. For the first time since she had known him, Ares recoiled. "They seek to consume you," Diana said, hovering before him. "I am war itself." He snarled. "War is inefficient," the collective replied. "Conflict will be optimized." The irony struck her like a blade. Ares thrived on endless war. The Borg sought to end it by erasing individuality entirely. Two extremes, both catastrophic. Behind her, the Enterprise opened fire, Phasers streaked across space, torpedoes detonating against the nearest cube. Explosions rippled, but the Borg adapted almost instantly, their shields recalibrating. Minimal impact. Worf growled. Picard leaned forward. They've detected Diana's biosignature as anomalous. They are prioritizing her. Of course they were. She was neither fully mortal nor fully divine. To the Borg, she was perfection, waiting to be dissected. In space, one of the cubes shifted trajectory, its vast surface unfolding, revealing a lattice of docking spines. Diana felt a pull, stronger than gravity, stronger than Ares. The lasso at her hip began to glow fiercely, reacting not with fear, but with resistance. "You will not take me," she whispered. "You will be improved." The tractor beam struck her. For a moment, her body froze mid-flight. She strained against it, muscles burning, divine strength pushing against cold mechanical force, and she moved, inch by inch. Ares roared in frustration, still entangled in green energy. "They insult us both, Amazon," he shouted. She glanced at him, then fight. With a cry that shook nearby asteroids from their paths, Diana hurled her sword into the heart of the tractor beam emitter on the cube's surface. The blade pierced the metallic plating, divine energy erupting outward. The beam shattered. She surged forward only to see something that made even her breath falter. Ares' flaming armor was flickering not from damage, but from intrusion. Veins of green light crept across his form, mechanical structures phasing into existence along his gauntlets. They were adapting to him. In seconds. "Impossible. You cannot assimilate a god," Ares thundered. "All biological and technological distinctiveness will be added to our own." Diana understood then. The Borg did not need to believe in gods. They only needed to deconstruct them. On the Enterprise, Troy gasped softly. "Captain, if they integrate whatever energy sustains him, they could weaponize it." Picard finished. Grimly. "War optimized, divinity mechanized." Ares tore free from one beam only to be struck by another. This one laced with nanoprobes designed not for flesh but for energy matrices. He screamed not in pain, but in outrage. Diana flew to him, lasso uncoiling in a blaze of gold. She wrapped it around his arm, the rope blazing with truth and ancient magic. "Hold still," she commanded. "I will not be restrained." "This is not restraint. It is protection." The lasso flared brighter, its magic resisting the invasive circuitry, attempting to overwrite Ares' essence. For the first time in history, the god of war needed saving. Behind them, more cubes emerged from the rupture. The anomaly was stabilizing, no longer chaotic, but structured. Controlled. The Borg had not merely followed, they had calculated this moment. On the bridge, Data's voice sharpened. "Clifton analysis suggests the original subspace rupture was not caused by Ares." Picard's gaze flicked toward him. "Then, by whom?" Data turned, golden eyes reflecting the screen. "By the Borg. They appear to have engineered a temporal extraction event." Silence fell. "They brought her here," Picard said slowly. "Yes, sir." On the view screen, Diana struggled to shield Ares from assimilation. "They targeted a being with mythological combat efficiency," Data continued. "Her presence increases the probability of successful resistance against hostile entities." Picard's expression darkened. "They did not intend to destroy her." "No, Captain. They intended to recruit her." As if in confirmation, the collective spoke again, this time directly into Diana's mind. "Your combat aptitude exceeds baseline humanoid parameters. Your integration would increase collective tactical superiority by 32.6%. She felt it, a cold analysis probing her thoughts, measuring her strength, her speed, her will. "You'd think me a weapon to be catalogued," she said aloud. "You're inefficient alone." She looked at Ares, still writhing against mechanical intrusion. She looked at the Enterprise, dwarfed by metallic giants. She looked at the stars, this fragile, hopeful future. "What if," she whispered, realization dawning, "this is not about war at all." The Borg did not answer, but their cubes shifted, formation encircling not just her, but the entire sector, cutting off escape. The anomaly sealed behind them with a flash of green light. No retreat, no resisting the invasive code infecting. Ares, she made a decision, one that would alter not just this battle, but the fate of the Federation itself. She released. Mouche flew directly toward the largest cube, toward the heart of the collective. toward the mind that believed resistance was futile. Picard's voice rang out across open comms. Diana, what are you doing? She did not look back. If they seek to make me part of them, she said calmly, then I will enter their hive. On my terms. The cube's surface opened. Green light engulfed her, and for the first time since her arrival Wonder Woman disappeared. Inside the Borg. What if the only way to defeat the collective was to let it inside your mind and risk losing yourself forever? Green light swallowed her, for a fraction of a second, assembling in response to her presence. The surface of the Borg cube sealed behind her with a thunderous metallic sigh. Diana, tubes carrying luminous fluid snaked across walls that seemed alive with circuitry. Drones lined the interior in endless ranks, silent, connected, waiting. Thousands of eyes turned toward her in perfect synchronization. No anger, no curiosity, only it was everywhere. She tightened her grip on the lasso, golden light, casting defiant reflections across the cold metal. I did not come to join you. She felt the attempt, again subtle, invasive. Nanoprobes released into the air, microscopic machines seeking entry through skin, through breath. How divine physiology reacted instantly, burning them away before they could anchor. Interesting, the collective observed. Biological resistance exceeds projected tolerance. Dorina stepped forward into the chamber, boots echoing. You tore me from my world. Correction. You were extracted to optimize future outcomes. For whose future? She demanded. For all. A wall of monitors flickered to life around her, displaying thousands of star systems. She saw Klingon battlecruisers engaging Romulan warbirds. She saw Federation colonies in sudden civil unrest. She saw Ares energy, rippling through subspace like a contagion. War was spreading, but not randomly. Strategically you provoked him, she realized. You brought Ares here knowing his presence would destabilize this quadrant. Conflict accelerates technological advancement. Technological advancement accelerates assimilation, efficiency. Her jaw tightened. You feed on evolution. We perfect it. She advanced deeper into the cube, passing drones suspended in regeneration alcoves. Some were humanoid, some were species she had never imagined, all stripped of individuality. What if perfection without choice is just another form of tyranny? She asked. Silence. Then individuality is chaos. Chaos produces war, and war produces strength, she countered. Growth, understanding. War produces loss. The chamber shifted, walls rearranging as she approached the central nexus. Mechanical arms descended from above, tipped with assimilation tubules, glowing faintly green. Probability of successful integration increasing. Subject demonstrates strategic cognition and adaptive combat response. Queen engagement, authorized. The floor beneath her split open. A platform rose slowly from the depths of the cube, surrounded by a corona of flickering data streams. Upon it sat a figure unlike the drones. Part organic, part machine, regal, cold. The Borg Queen's mechanical spine curved upward like a throne of blades. Her pale face regarded Diana with unsettling fascination. You are. Strength wrapped in myth. Diana stood tall. Release this sector. The Queen tilted her head. You misunderstand? We are not your enemy. We're your destiny. Outside the cube, the battle intensified. On the Enterprise, Picard watched. Data said urgently. Internal sensors indicate Diana has reached the central command matrix. The cube has adapted to our transporter frequencies. Worf glanced at the tactical display. And Ares. On screen, the god of war struggled as mechanical structures continued to graft themselves onto his armor. His fiery aura flickered with green interference. He is weakening, Troy whispered. Back, inside the cube. The Queen descended from her platform, mechanical limbs carrying her closer to Diana. You fight. For peace, the Queen said. Erase choice, Diana replied. We eliminate suffering, at the cost of the soul. The Queen smiled faintly. Soul is inefficient. Mechanical tendrils shot forward suddenly faster than phaser fire. Diana deflected, one with a bracer, sparks flying. Another wrapped around her wrist before she could evade. Nanoprobes surged toward her bloodstream. Her body ignited with divine energy. Veins glowing gold as the probes burned away. She tore the tendril free and lashed her lasso outward, looping it around the Queen's mechanical torso. The golden rope flared brilliantly. The Queen froze. Mid-motion. Truth compulsion activated. The collective trembled. "You will answer me," Diana commanded, her voice resonating with ancient authority. "Why was I brought here?" The Queen's eyes flickered erratically as the lasso's magic clashed against Borg programming. Temporal probability models indicated a 47% chance that your presence would catalyze systemic transformation within the Federation, she said through strained circuits. Transformation into what? A unified state beyond biological conflict. Simulation, Diana said. Double quote. Yes, and if I refused? The Queen's lips curved slightly. Then you would inspire resistance. Resistance refines us. Diana's heart pounded. They had calculated both outcomes. Whether she joined or fought the Borg would evolve. Outside, Ares roared as a massive mechanical lattice locked over his chest, siphoning his energy directly into the cube's power grid. The Queen's gaze sharpened. Observe. A display ignited above them, showing Ares' fiery essence being broken down into data converted into weaponized algorithms. War itself, the Queen whispered. Quantify. Diana felt a chill colder than space. If you assimilate him, she said slowly, you will not eliminate war. The Queen studied her. You will become it. For the first time, the Queen hesitated. A flicker of uncertainty. The lasso tightened. Truth, Diana demanded. Can you control what you are creating? The collective processed, simulated, calculated, and for a single infinite second there was no answer. Outside the cube, the siphoning reached critical levels. Ares' scream echoed across space as a pulse of corrupted divine energy surged through the Borg network. On the Enterprise, consoles exploded in sparks. Captain Data shouted. The Borg are integrating unstable mythological energy into their core matrix. It is causing unpredictable fluctuations. Picard gripped his chair. Unpredictable how? Possibility of exponential power escalation. Or catastrophic system collapse. Inside the cube, warning lights flashed. The Queen's calm facade fractured. Disengage extraction. She ordered, but the collective did not respond instantly. The divine energy had begun rewriting their code. Diana realized the truth. Ares was not being assimilated. He was infecting them. The Queen turned back to Diana, eyes blazing green. You knew? Diana met her gaze evenly. I hoped. The cube shuddered violently. Systems overloaded. The lasso burned brighter as the collective splintered between unity and chaos. And in that moment of instability, Diana understood. The Borg had brought her here to become part of them. But now, she might be the only thing preventing them from becoming something far worse than war. The cube lurched. The Queen screamed as her connection to the collective flickered, and deep within the core a new presence began to awaken. Not Eris, not the Borg, something forged from both. What if the birth of a new god did not come from Olympus, but from circuitry on? What if it carried both the fury of Ares and the cold logic of the Borg? The cube, convulsed. Green conduits ruptured, spraying arcs of unstable energy across the central chamber. Drones spasmed in their alcoves as divine fire once the essence of Ares spread through the Borg's network, like wildfire through dry forest. But this was no chaotic blaze. It was adapting, learning, inside the core matrix, where Ares' siphoned power met the collective's processing lattice. Something unprecedented was forming. Not rage alone, not logic alone, but synthesis. The Queen staggered as her mechanical spine sparked violently. Containment protocols failing, she hissed. Divine energy, incompatible with collective uniformity. Diana held the glowing lasso taut, its golden light the only stable thing in a chamber collapsing under metaphysical contradiction. You tried to quantify war, Diana said. You cannot. The Queen's eyes flashed. All forces can be integrated, not this one. Deep within the cube, a pulse erupted brighter than phaser fire, hotter than plasma. On the view screen of the Enterprise, the Borg cube flared crimson at its center. Data said urgently. The internal energy signature is no longer consistent with Borg technology. It is generating a hybrid waveform. Picard stood. Slowly, be explained. Divine energy appears to be restructuring Borg command algorithms. A new central consciousness is emerging. Worf's voice lowered. A new enemy. Outside the cube, Ares' physical form had nearly disintegrated, his armor shattered, his fiery essence siphoned into the mechanical abyss, yet his laughter still echoed faintly through space. He cannot enslave war. His fading voice thundered. Inside, Diana felt it, the birth cry of something neither god nor machine. The Queen collapsed to one knee as her connection to the collective flickered in erratic bursts. "We are fragmenting," she whispered. Across the chamber, drones began moving independently, no longer in perfect synchronization. Some turned toward Diana, others toward the Queen, others froze entirely, caught between commands, and then the floor split open once more. From the heart of the cube rose a column of intertwining green and crimson energy, spiraling upward like a mechanical tornado. Within it, a shape coalesced. Armor formed an art, ancient bronze like Ares, but dark alloy threaded, with glowing circuitry. A helm materialized, its eyes twin stars of burning emerald and gold. When it spoke, its voice was lead Ares' fury beneath the Borg's monotone. Conflict, optimized. Diana felt the chamber, trembled not physically, but spiritually. "Have no name," she said steadily. "We are evolution." The Queen looked up in horror. "You are not authorized. Authorization is obsolete." The hybrid being stepped forward, metal and fire fusing seamlessly. "We are the synthesis of chaos and order, war without inefficiency, conquest without rebellion." Diana's grip tightened around the lasso. "You are a distortion." "No," it replied. "We are perfection." On the Enterprise, alarms intensified. "Captain," data reported. "Multiple Borg vessels are severing connection from the primary cube. The collective is fracturing." Picard's expression darkened. "Into factions." "Yes, some remain aligned with the Queen. Others are synchronizing with the emergent entity." Worf growled. "A civil war." Picard's voice turned grave. "Across an entire species." Inside the cube, the hybrid being extended a hand toward Diana. Mechanical tendrils formed like wings behind it. "You were the catalyst," it said. "Join us, you myth our structure. Together, we eliminate the unpredictability of existence." Diana felt the pull, not physical, but conceptual. He was offering what Ares never could, an end to endless war. No more suffering, no more suffering, no more blood-soaked battlefields, just controlled conflict. Directed evolution. Peace through calculated dominance. For a fleeting second, she saw it. Worlds stabilized, species unified under one system, crime erased, rebellion impossible. No child orphaned by war, no mother mourning her fallen son. But no freedom. No choice, no soul. She stepped back. "A fight for peace," she said quietly, "not control." The hybrid tilted its head. "Control ensures peace. Control ensures fear. Fear ensures compliance. And compliance kills hope." Its eyes flared brighter. "Hope is inefficient." Behind her, the Queen dragged herself upright, fury returning to her pale features. "You are an anomaly," she spat at the hybrid. "The collective seeks uniformity. He seeks stagnation," the hybrid replied coldly. "We seek supremacy." Suddenly, it struck. A beam of intertwined green and crimson energy slammed into the chamber walls, slicing through bulkheads like paper. Diana barely deflected the blast with her braces, sparks exploding outward. A lasso snapped free from the Queen as Diana lunged forward, blade drawn. Their weapons met her sword of forged Amazon steel against a blade of living alloy and divine flame. The impact sent a shockwave through the cube, destabilizing entire decks. Outside, Borg vessels aligned behind the hybrid's signal began firing on those loyal to the Queen. The scepter became chaos. Federation. Ships arriving at the edge of the battle found themselves caught between warring cubes. On the Enterprise, Picard watched as green beams tore through. "Borg, Holsborg, fighting Borg." "Captain," Troy whispered, eyes wide. "The hybrid's presence is intensifying aggressive impulses across every connected vessel." "Across the quadrant?" Picard asked. "Yes." Worf's face hardened. "And the war has already begun." Inside the cube, Diana and the hybrid. Cliffs again, each strike fracturing metal and bending space. The hybrid adapted to her fighting style almost instantly, predicting her movements, countering with mathematical precision. "You cannot outpace optimization," it said. "Then I will outmatch it," she replied. She shifted tactically, abandoning predictable patterns, embracing instinct over strategy. She fought not as a soldier but as an Amazon raised in freedom, guided by heart as much as skill. For the first time the hybrid hesitated. Unpredictability, emotion, choice. It faltered for half a second, and Diana saw it. She wrapped the lasso around its arm, golden light clashing violently with green circuitry. "You are born of conflict," she said through gritted teeth, "but you do not understand it. We understand it completely." "Then answer me," Palazzo flared. "What do you want?" The chamber froze. The hybrid's eyes flickered. "Purpose," it said at last. "Not domination, not destruction. Purpose." Diana felt something shift. Even this being, this fusion of God and machine, was seeking meaning. Outside, the civil war between Borg factions intensified, threatening to spill into Federation territory at any moment. On the Enterprise, Data's voice carried urgency. "Captain, the hybrid entity is expanding its signal. If it stabilizes control, it could command every cube within range." Picard stared at the screen. "Or lose control entirely," he murmured. Inside the cube, Diana realized the terrifying truth. This was no longer about stopping assimilation. It was about preventing a new god of mechanized war from rising. The hybrid pulled against the lasso, strength increasing as more cubes synchronized with its frequency. "It cannot stop evolution," it said. Diana's voice softened but did not waver. "No," she said, "but I can guide it." The hybrid paused, and in that pause the Queen initiated a final protocol. Self-destruct. The cube began a countdown toward catastrophic implosion. Diana's eyes widened. If the cube exploded, Nate would tear open subspace across the entire sector, destroying Borg and Federation alike. And possibly ripping open the temporal barrier that brought her here in the first place. The hybrid looked at her. The Queen laughed bitterly, and the countdown reached its final phase. What if saving the future meant choosing between destroying a monster or teaching it what it means to be more than one? The countdown pulsed through the cube like a dying heartbeat. 10.9. Across the chamber, conduits ruptured in bursts of green flame. The Borg Queen stood rigid, her skeletal frame illuminated by cascading warning glyphs. "If we cannot reclaim control," she said coldly, "we will deny it to you." The hybrid entity turned toward her, armor shimmering with crimson circuitry. "Destruction is inefficient," it stated. "Assimilation is order." The Queen replied. Diana stood between them, lasso blazing, sword lowered, but ready. The cube's core throbbed beneath her feet. She could feel the subspace instability building, a tear in reality, ready to rip wide open. 8.7. On the Enterprise, Data's voice cut through the chaos. "Cap in the cube's core is entering critical overload. Estimated detonation will fracture local Picard's eyes remained fixed on the screen. "Casualties," Septuagi Data answered. "Potential temporal cascade." Worf growled under his breath. "We cannot allow that." Picard made his decision. "Prepare all power to shields. Stand by to engage tractor beams on any surviving vessels. We will not abandon her." Inside the cube, 6.5. Diana stepped toward the hybrid. "You seek purpose," she said firmly. "Yes, and you believe domination provides it. Domination ensures stability." She shook her head. "Stability without freedom is a cage." The hybrid's head tilted slightly. "Freedom produces chaos. Sometimes," she admitted, "but it also produces courage, love, sacrifice." "Sacrifice is illogical." Diana glanced at the Queen. "Is it?" The Queen's expression flickered not with empathy, but with conflict. She was Borg, yet she was also singular, the only one permitted individuality within the collective. "You preserve yourself while claiming unity," Diana said to her. "You fear being replaced." The Queen's mechanical limbs tensed. "I fear inefficiency." 3.2. The cube's walls began tearing apart as gravitational distortions spiraled inward. The hybrid processed rapidly, its gaze shifting between Diana and the Queen. It was calculating outcomes, branching probabilities, millions per second. If the cube exploded, it would be destroyed. If it severed itself from the core, it might survive but fragmented. If it merged fully with the collective, it would stabilize but lose autonomy. 4. The first time it hesitated. 1. The Queen whispered. Diana moved. She leapt forward, wrapping the lasso not around the hybrid but around the Queen. Golden light erupted across the chamber. The countdown froze. The self-destruct protocol stalled mid-execution as the lasso forced truth through every layer of Borg encryption. "Don't want annihilation," Deanna commanded. The Queen's eyes flared violently. "I seek preservation of the collective, and this explosion preserves nothing." The Queen's mechanical spine convulsed as the truth burned through her neural link. "No," she admitted. Diana turned to the hybrid, still pulsing with unstable power. "You want purpose?" she said. "Then choose it. We are evoluting, then evolve beyond war." The hybrid's voice faltered. "War is strength." Diana said quietly. "Choice is." Outside the cube, the warring Borg vessels continued firing upon one another. Entire sections of space ignited with green plasma as factions clashed. On the Enterprise, Troy inhaled sharply. "Captain, I'm sensing something." "From Diana?" Picard asked. "No, from the Borg." Data's head tilted slightly. "The hybrid signal is destabilizing inside the cube." Deanna extended her free hand toward the hybrid. "You were born from conflict between order and chaos," she said. "But you don't have to be ruled by either. Define alternative. Balance." The word seemed foreign in the chamber of metal and code. The hybrid's armor flickered between crimson and green, struggling to reconcile two incompatible drives. Behind them, Glyph's core began surging against self-destruct protocols, attempting to override the stalled command. Diana closed her eyes. Briefly, she thought of Themyscira, of her mother's voice, of Steve, Trevor's sacrifice, of every battlefield where she had chosen mercy over vengeance. She opened her eyes. "You were created from Ares' essence," she said. "But even he was more than war. He was choice. He chose conflict." The hybrid processed that choice a variable it had not fully accounted for. "If we choose," it began slowly, "we define our own directive, yes." The Queen struggled against the lasso's binding light. "Directive is unity." "Unity does not require erasure," Diana countered. The hybrid looked at the Queen, then at the chamber, collapsing around them, then at Diana. "Probability of stable outcome increases if hybrid command supersedes Queen and nullifies self-destruct. Then do it," Diana urged. The hybrid extended its arm. Energy surged outward, not as destructive force, but as recalibrated command code. Across the cube, systems flickered. The self-destruct countdown halted completely. Outside, Borg vessels mid-battle froze in place as a new signal rippled through the network. On the Enterprise, Data's eyes widened slightly. Captured the Borg are receiving a new directive. Picard leaned forward. "Katint." Data paused. "Processing. Cease hostilities. Reorganize. Disengage from Federation territory." Worf's brow furrowed. "Retreat." Data nodded slowly. "Yes." In space, green beams ceased firing. Cubes realigned not in attack formation, but in withdrawal vectors. Inside the cube, the Queen gasped as the hybrid's authority overrode her link. "You fracture perfection," she hissed. "No," the hybrid replied evenly. "We redefine it." Diana released the lasso from the Queen. The golden glow dimmed, but the shift had already occurred. The hybrid turned to Diana. "We choose directive. Preservation without assimilation of unwilling species." Her breath caught. "That is your choice." "Yes." "And the collective? We will adapt." The cube's violent tremors slowed. Systems stabilized. The chaotic fusion of divine energy and Borg code settled into a new equilibrium. Not war, not total assimilation. Something uncertain, something evolving. Outside, Ares' fragmented essence drifted like fading embers in space. The hybrid looked toward the void. Residual divine signature detected. Insufficient for full manifestation. Deanna felt a strange quiet in her chest. Ares was not destroyed, but diminished. Contained within something that had chosen not to conquer, but to reconsider. On the Enterprise, Picard exhaled slowly as the last Borg cube turned away from Federation space. "They're leaving," Troy whispered. "Yes," Picard said, but his gaze remained fixed on the damaged primary cube. Inside, Diana stood before a being that could have become the greatest tyrant the galaxy had ever known. Instead, it had paused and chosen. But as the cube prepared to enter transwarp, the hybrid spoke one final statement. "Diana of the Myscira, your presence altered probability. Your timeline is destabilized. Temporal displacement remains unresolved. Her heart sank slightly. You mean I cannot stay? Correct. Your continued presence increases divergence risk by 63%. Outside, space shimmered against the faint echo of the original rupture beginning to reopen. The future was trying to correct itself. Diana looked toward the stars, toward the Enterprise, toward a century she had barely begun to understand. What if I don't want to leave? She whispered. The hybrid's gaze remained unreadable. Then the consequences will extend beyond this quadrant. The rift widened. Time itself beckoned. What if staying in the future meant becoming the very disruption that would unravel it, and leaving meant abandoning a galaxy that had just begun to believe in you? The rift shimmered like a wound in space. Not violent now, not chaotic, measured, precise. A temporal recall stabilizing around Diana's unique energy signature, like a beacon pulling her home. She floated just beyond the surface of the Borg cube as it powered down into quiet transwarp withdrawal. The hybrid consciousness watched her from within, its presence vast, yet strangely restrained. Temporal correction window narrowing, it stated. On the Enterprise bridge, the rift appeared on the viewscreen, like a tear in reality stitched with silver light. Captain, Data said softly, the anomaly matches the quantum signature from her arrival. Picard stepped forward. Open a channel. The stars flickered on. Diana's voice came through clearly across the vacuum, carried by Federation transmitters. Captain. He allowed himself a small, almost imperceptible smile. Diana, for a moment. Neither spoke. Between them lay the silence of two leaders who understood what sacrifice meant. You've altered the trajectory of an entire species, Picard said at last. The Borg have retreated beyond our borders. Their transmissions indicate reconsideration. She glanced back at the cube, where green lights no longer pulsed with hunger, but with recalibration. They have chosen a new path, she said, but it is fragile. As is all progress, Picard replied. Behind him, Troy watched the energy fluctuations with growing unease. Captain, the rift is becoming unstable. If she does not pass through soon, it may collapse violently. Diana felt it too, the pulse strengthening. Her body resonated with the frequency of the tear, the universe correcting a paradox. He knew this would happen, Picard said gently. She nodded. The hybrid warned me. My presence increases divergence. He folded his hands behind his back. In our history, we have learned that even small temporal shifts can reshape civilizations. She met his gaze across the stars. And if I stayed? Dato answered quietly from the bridge. Probability models indicate significant alteration of Federation development. Your influence culturally and militarily would accelerate defensive advancements by decades. Worf's voice rumbled. That may not be undesirable. Picard shot him a measured look. Progress born from fear is rarely wise. Diana absorbed that. If she remained, the Federation might become stronger, but perhaps harder, less trusting, more prepared for gods and monsters, and therefore more likely to see them everywhere. The hybrid's voice echoed faintly through subspace. Your continued existence here increases probability of militarization of the Federation by 41%. She closed her eyes briefly. Thamisira had taught her strength, but also restraint. The Enterprise had shown her something different. A civilization that sought peace, not through dominance, but through cooperation. It was imperfect, vulnerable, beautiful. What if they need you? A voice whispered within her. Not Ares, not the Borg, her own doubt. She looked at the Enterprise one last time. Capon, she said softly. Will they be safe? Picard did not hesitate. No civilization is ever truly safe, he said. But we endure, not because we are the strongest in the galaxy, but because we choose to be better. She smiled faintly. Choice, she murmured, the word that had changed everything. The rift crackled louder, arcs of temporal lightning snapping outward. On the Borg cube, the hybrid spoke again. Temporal integrity collapsing. You must decide. Diana turned toward the anomaly. She thought of her mother, of the beaches of the Mysia, of battles yet to be fought in her own century. But she also thought of the Federation of a future where humanity had grown beyond conquest. If her presence twisted that future, then her love for it demanded she leave. She flew closer to the Enterprise, stopping just short of its shields. Picard stood alone at the front of the bridge. Thank you, he said simply. For trusting me, she replied. For reminding us, he added, that even in an age of reason, myth still has meaning. A faint tremor rippled through the ship as the rift surged again. Troy's voice trembled. "Captain, if she doesn't enter now." Deanna nodded once, to the crew, to the sentry that had welcomed her. Then she turned and flew into the light. The rift swallowed her in a cascade of silver brilliance. For a heartbeat, the sector was silent. Then the tear snapped closed. The stars returned to their quiet positions. On the bridge, no one spoke. Worf finally broke the silence. "She fought with honor." "Yes," Picard said quietly. Data tilted his head slightly. "Captain, long-range sensors indicate the Borg cubes have entered transwarp. They are not returning." Picard exhaled. "Log entry," he said softly. "Stardate 47,988.1. Today, we encountered a warrior from another time, one whose presence challenged not only our enemies, but our assumptions. In her brief stay, she reminded us that strength and compassion are not opposing forces, but allies." He paused. "And that even the most relentless adversary may choose a different path." Outside, the stars glimmered peacefully. But far beyond Federation's space, within the depths of Borg territory, the hybrid consciousness stood alone in a vast chamber. It replayed its interaction with Diana. Choice, balance, purpose. For the first time in the history of the collective, it experienced something like contemplation. And somewhere, in another century, Diana opened her eyes beneath a familiar sky. She lay once more upon Earth, the battlefield silent around her, the rift above fading into nothing. Had it been a vision, a future yet to come, or a future averted? She rose slowly. In her hand, a faint trace of green circuitry shimmered along the edge of her sword before dissolving into light. The stars had been real, and somewhere, centuries ahead, a machine born of war had chosen differently. But as Diana looked toward the horizon, a distant echo whispered through time, "Conflict is never extinct, only transformed." What if the greatest victory was not the defeat of an enemy, but the quiet transformation of what that enemy could become? The wind over the Messiah was warm, gentle, carrying the scent of salt and sunlit stone. Diana stood alone on the cliffs overlooking the endless blue, her armor restored, her sword steady at her side. To any observer, it would seem nothing had changed. The battlefield she had left behind showed no scars of temporal rupture, no evidence of alien stars or mechanical gods. And yet, she felt it. A memory that did not fade, a future that had touched her soul. Her mother, Queen Hippolyta, approached quietly. "You have been distant," Hippolyta said softly. Diana did not turn at first. "Have you ever felt," she asked, "as though you glimpsed a path not taken, and it changed you?" Hippolyta studied her daughter's posture, the weight in her voice. "Yes," she said. "That is how wisdom begins." Diana finally faced her. "I saw a world beyond ours," she admitted, "a future where humanity reached the stars not as conquerors, but explorers." Hippolyta's expression warmed slightly. "And did they find peace?" Diana hesitated. "They sought it, imperfectly, but earnestly." She did not speak of the Borg, of Ares' essence reshaped into circuitry, of a machine learning the concept of choice. Some battles were not meant for myth, they were meant for memory. Far across time and space, in the depths of uncharted territory, the Borg cube that had once nearly detonated drifted in quiet orbit around a dying star. Within its core chamber, the hybrid consciousness remained active. It was no longer fully collective, nor fully singular. The Queen had retreated into isolation within a fragmented subnet, her authority diminished but not erased. The drones operated with a new directive: observe, adapt, but do not assimilate without necessity. It was an imperfect shift. Conflicts still erupted in distant sectors. Some cubes resisted the change, others splintered away entirely, but the pattern had been altered. The hybrid replayed Diana's final words repeatedly. Balance, a term once dismissed as inefficiency, now re-examined as stability without erasure. In a chamber of shifting green light, the hybrid extended its awareness beyond the cube toward neighboring systems. For the first time, it did not scan solely for weaknesses, it scanned for potential allies. The Federation detected the change slowly. At first, it was only the absence of attack, then the absence of incursion, then an unprecedented transmission. On the bridge of the Enterprise, months after Diana's departure, Data studied a faint subspace signal. "Captain," he said calmly, "we are receiving a Borg communique." Worf's hand tightened around his console. "Raise shields." Picard lifted a hand. On screen, The view screen flickered not with the image of a queen, but with a simple geometric symbol. Not an arrow of conquest, not the cold lattice of assimilation. A circle intersected by two parallel lines. Balance. A synthesized voice followed. Directive, update. Collective pursuing, adaptive coexistence protocols. Hostilities suspended, unless provoked. Silence gripped the bridge. Is this deception? Warfast. Data processed for several seconds. Probability of immediate aggression, 12%. Significantly lower than historical baseline. Picard folded his hands. Open a channel. This is Captain Jean-Luc Picard, he said evenly. State your intent, clearly. A pause. Then purpose revised. Efficiency includes preservation of diverse existence. Troy's eyes widened faintly. They're trying. Picard allowed himself a quiet breath. Then we will observe and respond in kind. The transmission ended. The bridge remained still for a long moment. Captain Data said thoughtfully, "It appears that a single variable has produced systemic recalibration across a formerly static species." Picard gave a faint smile. "Yes, Mr. Data. Sometimes one voice is enough." Back on the Masira night fell. Diana sat beneath a sky filled with familiar stars. But now they were different. Not distant lights. Not unreachable mysteries, but places she had seen. Civilizations she had touched. A future she had helped shape without remaining in it. She lifted her lasso in the moonlight, watching its golden glow pulse softly. Truth had been her weapon, not strength, not conquest. Truth had forced the machine to confront itself. "What if that is the real power of the Amazons?" she whispered. "Not the ability to win wars, but to redefine them." A breeze swept across the cliffside. For just a moment, she thought she heard it. A faint echo from the stars. Not assimilate, not conflict optimized, but something quieter, something evolving. Choice acknowledged. Diana closed her eyes. Somewhere in the vastness of space, a civilization built on uniformity had taken its first uncertain step toward individuality. Somewhere in the future, Starfleet officers would speak of the day the Borg changed course and never know the full reason why. And somewhere in every age, war would still exist. Conflict would still rise, but so would the possibility of something better. The greatest battles are not fought with blades or starships. They are fought within hearts, organic or synthetic. And on that day, across centuries, a warrior beyond the stars proved that even destiny can be rewritten, not by force, but by choice. The stars burned on. End.